Okay.
Perfect. And you can do it. You can see. Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, so welcome to the AIG Functionality, Security, and Roles and Reports. We will go through this today. I understand we have a couple hours of this. We'll follow along. We'll try to answer your questions as they come in. From there, so we're going to move on to the next slide. Okay. So today we're going to talk about some learning goals, and those will be the overview of your AIG access and roles, how to set those up, who needs to have those roles. We're going to talk a little bit about searching for students. That's just your search functionality in PowerSchool. And then we're going to talk about when you find those students, identifying and tagging your AIG students. Once students are tagged or students that already have AIG set up on them, we're going to talk about modifying and updating existing enrollments. And then maybe you might need to withdraw a student from the AIG program, so we'll step through that step on how to withdraw a student. We will show you how to generate some AIG reports, and we'll talk about the exceptions that you see in the headcount reports. So the first step that we're going to talk about is the roles for AIG, and they are designated. You have roles that can view only and roles that can view and modify. So the top level role will be your AIG District Coordinator. Oh, let me start this over. Give me just one second. All right, so your AIG District Coordinator is a district-based coordinator who oversees the AIG program and is responsible for AIG data at the district level. They can view and modify for the entire LEA on all fields and pages, and this person can edit records outside of any 30-day window. The next step down will be your AIG Lead Specialist. The lead specialist is a school-based AIG personnel who manages the student data at the school level. This person can view and modify capability for school on all fields and pages. They can only modify within 30 days of the record creation. They can change exceptionalities, and they can withdraw students. And then finally, you may have somebody that needs to just view your AIG data. You will give them a role of AIG Specialist, school-based AIG personnel who works with the program but not modify the data. They have view-only capabilities for the school on all fields and all pages. Down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a link, and that goes to the setup steps for AIG Security. We will step through that a little bit, but there's a good link with all the details you will need. So here's why you might want to set up your AIG roles. And I don't know if this error comes up as much as it used to, but if somebody does not have the AIG rights, they may see this top page, and it's got a bunch of, some people will call it gobbledygook, but it's a bunch of script that they'll see in the background. They will not see the AIG data. They may see a blank page. They may just see basic information if they do not have the AIG rights set up. A user with AIG rights will see the actual page that a student has if they've set up with AIG placement. And the AIG District Coordinator and Lead Specialist will also see an update button, as you can see in that second screenshot. And Ms. Stephanie, you jump in whenever you need to add a little bit to what I'm saying.
I will. No problem.
All right. So, any questions so far?
So far, no.
Okay, so we'll move on. Again, we're going to go with the AIG Security. We're going to talk about roles versus security groups. Their security groups are set up because to be a function that will assign your staff members to groups in order to enable security restrictions and privileges. Some of you may already be familiar with setting up security groups. It gives them access to certain pages, to certain rights, to what they can do on those pages. The next thing is your security user access roles. And roles serve as a way to support multiple security configurations at different schools. These roles are additive, meaning that for any particular setting, users are given the highest level of access granted to any of their roles. So if you gave a user a role, or if the user has a default role, and they cannot see Social Security numbers on any field, on any of those Social Security number fields, but then you add a role to them that has view-only access for Social Security number fields, then the security will default to the highest level, or the view-only role. So just a note, create your security groups first. And you can refer to our QRD on security groups that you can find in www.ncsys.org. Do we have a question?
Well, the question is, can the AIG coordinator role be a designee, or does it have to be the actual coordinator?
So that's a great question. I think that's Alina. The coordinator role definitely is one that you determine at the district level who should have that access and who you need to have that access. So it does not have to be the AIG district coordinator. It could be your designee. And I also want to just point out it could be more than one person. That role can be assigned to several different individuals. So I would think carefully about the kind of access that you need different individuals to have. And then you determine, do you want them to have access as a specialist, a lead specialist, or indeed the district coordinator? So think carefully about that. I think there are lots of different models and that folks are using right now, but think carefully about the kind of access you want individuals or you need individuals to have. So I hope that answers your question. I see another question that may be related.
Okay, so the next question is, I have AIG specialists in middle and high school who need access to all students in the school to complete AIG testing and files, but they cannot have AIG specialist access because they are classroom teachers. Is there any way we can ever assign two roles to teachers in school, teacher role and AIG specialist role?
That sounds like a functionality question. So you all, can you answer that?
So you can set up your teachers to also have admin access, and we'll go over that a little bit. So you can not only just give them the teacher under their security settings when you pull them up under staff, and you go to security settings, they have the teacher tab where they check to let them log into their teacher, power teacher, and then you have your admin tab where you can check and set them up to log in as an admin. So then they could log into one or the other. Does that help, Nikki? Okay.
So Eileen, I think your question is coming. If you can kind of hold on about the security group, I think we're going to cover. I think that what we're going to go over there will help you. Let me just say again, we've talked about this several times. I think probably in each of the last webinars over the last year and a half. This is critically important that you determine who should have which access, which kind or which level of access. Who should have that access, and make sure that you get both the role and the security group correct. Because if that's not correct, you're not going to be able to get the information you need out of the system. So we're going to talk it through. I'm going to throw it back over to Cammie, and she's going to go over the next section. But it really is critically important that your access is set up correctly in order to get the information you need out of the system. Okay? Okay.
Okay, so then we were finishing up with your security groups and roles. That's when you create your security group. When you get to adding that user access role, that group will be available to attach or define the role security rights. And we'll see that in just a minute. So a couple of things we need to think about before we start setting up these groups and roles. When setting up your security groups and roles, it's best practice that the group name and the role are the same. You might see occasionally that that does not apply, but for 95%, 99% of the time, you would set them up the same. It'd be easier to keep up with and easier to remember what kind of rights each group has. So in this scenario, the AIG District Coordinator role is attached to the AIG District Coordinator group. And we'll see that in just a minute, how to set that up. Sorry. All right, so my clicker needs to get on the right spot. All right, so some more think about it. When setting up staff with multiple security group roles, and you can do that, somebody may need several roles, each group must have a corresponding role defined. And we'll read our little blurb over here. If the LEA wants their users with full admin rights, excuse me, to be able to edit AIG records, such as your AIG District Coordinator or AIG Lead Specialist role, the default admin group that they are in to be defined as a role in user access roles. And if you can see in the screenshot, it's a little grayed out because I have that other window open on top of it. This person is a data manager, and they are going to need an AIG role. So we're going to also need to set up a data manager role. So then later we can give them both roles, data manager and AIG lead or AIG specialist. Just because you may be in a group that has full rights to PowerSchool does not give you full rights to the AIG page. You're going to have to set up those roles. So the groups that have read-only permission, those groups will need to be assigned the role of AIG specialist. So how to add a group. And you see your navigation up there. We will start on the start page. And this can be done at school level or at LEA level to set up your security groups. It goes to the same page. You're going to go under Setup, and you're going to go click on System, navigate, scroll down on the page to Security, and then click on Security. The Security window will open a group page, a function page, and in the functions, you're going to choose Groups. Once you've got your groups, you're going to need to set up that group. So if you look on step 3, this page has the Add Groups button. You don't need to click that unless you are adding more groups to the list. Most of you have already set up your groups, and you have 1 through 200, 1 through 300. So you do not need to add any more groups. What we need to do is pick one of those groups and change it into one of the AIG roles. You can see if you already have AIG roles set up, groups set up, excuse me, so we're talking about groups, by doing the filter, typing in AIG. It is not case sensitive. Just type it in and it'll bring up your AIG roles if you already have them set up. Now, if you have the filter in, you would not see what I have highlighted in red, the group 169, because it does not have AIG in the name. So take your filter out once you see what you have. So in this case, my school needs to set up the AIG lead specialist. So I want to use group 169 for that. So I would have to take the AIG out of the filter so then I could go back and find group 169. Any questions about setting up groups? All right. Yep, well, there are plenty of QRDs on www.ncsys.org on setting up your groups. So to create a role, we're going back to our PowerSchool Start page. And you're going to go back under Setup and click on System. And you go to Roles Administration. And again, this can be accessed from either school level or LEA level. The Roles Administrations page, you'll scroll down and you'll see you're going to need to select your user access, and you'll choose user access. So step 3, you're going to fill in the following when you open the Edit User Access Role page. And what's required is the group name. Now, I have group 169 in here, but you're going to need to change that to the AIG Lead Specialist, AIG Coordinator, District Coordinator. You're going to need to name it exactly as DPI has asked you to name it. The description box is an optional field, so you can put in there, this is my AIG lead specialist. They can view and modify AIG records in a 30-day window. To use the role, you're going to need to enable it, so you make sure that box is checked. And then to make the role have the correct security rights, you're going to need to connect it to your security group. And in this case, I'm using 169, but you will see whatever you named it, AIG Lead Specialist, AIG District Coordinator, or AIG Specialist. Categories is a not applicable, don't even worry about categories, and then you would submit to make that role effective. Okay, so now we have our groups, we have our roles set up. We need to add this role to a person. So we'll come back to our start page, and you're going to search for your staff. That can be done for several areas on the page. So in number 1, you can click on Staff Search in the blue rail. It'll just bring up the staff tab that you see on the start page. You can type that person's last name in the search bar and click Search. You can click on Teachers or Staff Directory. Any way you can select your staff member. Once you have a staff member selected, you'll click on them and it'll bring up their staff's information pages or whatever page you last saw. You need to go to their security settings, and that's under Functions on the staff page. And then once you've clicked on Security Settings, you'll see the Security Settings page, and you'll see the tabs for Teachers and Affiliations, Admin and Access Roles, and Applications. You want to choose the Admin, Access, and Roles. Notice that this staff member that I've chosen is a PowerSchool Data Manager. Underneath there, you'll see the bottom box is Roles in Schools, and this is where you're going to set your roles. I know this data manager needs to have some AIG access, but they're a data manager too, so if you recall, they're going to need 2 roles, a data manager role and the AIG role. So we're going to click the Add button. The Add button is going to bring up a new window you'll see on the left there. It's going to show you Step 1. So Step 1 is to select what schools does this staff member have access to do the whatever for the AIG roles. It can be 1, it can be more. It has to be at least 1. If you look to the right of the screen, you click Next after you've added your schools. You don't need to click OK, click Next. So Part 2 is to add the roles. And there are 3 choices for roles. It's Use Default Group, Use All Roles, Use Roles Without Security Groups. So I want to choose Use All Roles so I can see all the roles that have been defined at this school. Okay? So if you look down the list, you'll see District Admin, School Administrator, Teacher, Counselor, and so on. This person needs to have access to my AIG Specialist role. They are also the PowerSchool Data Manager, so I'm going to check those boxes. And I also want them to run reports with the Data Export Manager. And notice it has no group defined. This is one of your roles that will never have a group defined. So you would check it. It is just a role that gives them access to the Data Export Manager. Notice my AIG Specialist has a group defined, and my PowerSchool Data Manager has a group defined. What if I wanted to give them access to the counselor group here? I could check that box, but it's not going to help them because that counselor group has no group defined. So they would not get counselor rights unless I went back and set up that counselor role with a counselor group. Anybody have any questions about setting up these roles? Okay. Okay, so we're going to move on to searching for students. Most of you probably already quickly know how to do this. So we'll go to the start page, and you'll just search in the search bar. You can do the letters. You can go by the alphabet. You can go by the grade level. use their last name. If you do want to find students that have AIG records already set for them on the AIG program screen, then there is a special search. And if you'll look, you'll see a section called View Field List. And it is a link, and you would click on it, and you'll see the little inset. You would filter that list for AIG. Again, it's not case sensitive. And the field that you are looking for has the AIG status in it. So it's S_NC_STU for student _AIG_X dot AIG_status. And to find the kids that do have AIG on them, if you look at the bottom of the screen, you'll see I've got a £sign after the word status. That means it's going to find everybody that is tagged for your AIG. Sorry about that. Everybody that is set for AIG. Maybe you need to find students that don't have AIG. Just put an equal sign instead of the £sign after the field. And then you'll click search.
Let me just say, this is the search that is not dependent upon the most recent head count. So if you are looking for a quick and easy way to search for your AIG students, this is a way that's extremely accurate because it does not have anything to do with the head count. It just means that those students have information in that AIG program page. There is a QRD, or that quick reference document, and we can post that on our wiki site. It's already on the NC site, that has the step-by-step instructions that Cammie just went over for searching for a student, okay? This is the one way that you can do it that's not at all related or dependent upon the head count. So it's a helpful, useful search, okay?
Okay. So we need to identify and tag AIG students, and these are students that are not already identified as AIG. Brand new to the AIG program, they've finally qualified, and you need to add them to the AIG program. So, and I did have a link here to that QRD for AIG search. So if you do want to go look at that PDF, that QRD, there's the link. So you'll query from the start page and search for your student, and you'll select them. And then when you have your student page up, under information, if you'll scroll down, you'll see AIG program at the bottom of the list. And you'll click on that to bring up the AIG program page. Once you're on the AIG program page, under current school, you'll see the word add. You'll need to click that to add a new record for the student.
Now I'm going to just point out to you again, if you do not have access as at least a lead specialist or district coordinator, you will not see the add button. So if that's the role you need, to have an add button, you need to go to your Power School administrator and walk back through the security roles and groups, because you are not set up correctly, or you're not set up with the access that you need. Okay, so you will not see an add button unless you have that level of access. Okay? Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so we do have a question come in. It says, do you have to have it on a school to do the search function? No, you can search at LEA level, and it will find all those students.
Good question.
Mm-hmm. Very good question. Okay, so here's the window that comes up after you click the add button. And here you're going to need to fill out a couple fields. Notice that your school field will already be filled in. It auto-populates when you click the add button, and it will be the name of the school that's creating this record. So this, you do need to be at school level. Okay? The school placement date is actually the date the student begins receiving services at a particular school. And then you're going to need to choose your AIG identification and select the appropriate one.
So I'm just going to mention that the school placement date is that is a new title of that column. And I'll show you in just a few slides where that becomes important. But we changed the title of that column to more accurately describe what that first date is. Okay, but we'll show you what that is with that in just a moment. But just know that's a new title, and I know that some folks have had some questions about that. So.
Okay, so when you're on the AIG identification, this might look a little different than what you're used to also. So you'll see the 5 identifications now. So academically and intellectually gifted, or AI, this will be defined at your district or your LEA. You define what that should be. The same thing for academically gifted, or AG. And you'll see in the parentheses, those abbreviations will show up on your reports when you run them later. So AG is academically gifted. This used to be the academically gifted, both reading and math. But notice, this is your district to and LEA level to define.
Many of you may still use AG for math, and that is fine. But with the new addition of AIG and the new plans and your new identification models, that is a little bit more flexible for you to decide how you need to use it. So it will now just appear as AG. It won't automatically have that reading and math in parentheses, because we know that you may have changed or be using it differently. Okay?
Okay, and then your final 3 are your academically gifted math only, academically gifted reading only, and intellectually gifted. And the last one again is LEA district defined. Once you've chosen your identification, you'll click cancel or submit, whichever one applies. Linda, who can't you hear? Me or? Okay, you got it.
Not sure.
Okay, are we good? All right. So we're going to move on to updating and modifying AIG information. And this, again, only applies to the roles AIG District Coordinator and AIG Lead Specialist. They can delete, used to be called undo. They can modify records, and they can withdraw a student from AIG. Delete will be the first function that we'll look at. If the current record was entered within the last 30 days at the school, then the delete, formerly undo button will display. So number 1, those that have access can click the update button. Once you've clicked it, number 2, if you'll scroll to the right, if your screen didn't show up, you'll see the delete heading. It used to say undo in the heading, now it says delete. And you'll see a square box with a minus sign in it. If you're sure you want to delete this record, maybe you put it on the wrong student, maybe you had 2 students with the same name and accidentally entered AIG on the wrong student, this needs to be deleted. So we'll click the minus sign. It will always ask you again to please confirm. Are you sure you want to delete this record? And if you do, click delete, and if you don't, click cancel.
I may have missed you saying this because I was typing a response to a question, but delete really should be used when you've completely made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say that already?
Yes, if you want,
Okay.
like if you put it on the wrong student.
If you put it on the wrong student. We've had lots of questions about that recently. Like, what do you mean by delete? That means you just really, someone just entered a record for the wrong student or had some bad information. It never should have been entered in the first place. Delete is not equivalent or not the same as withdraw, okay? So let's just make sure we're clear on that. We just made an uh-oh, and we need to just completely wipe that clean because we chose the wrong student out of a list. There's 2 Mike Smiths or something like that. So that's where we're going to use the delete, all right?
Okay.
And we had another question come in, which I think is a good question. Can AI and AG be used interchangeably? We have been using AG for academically and intellectually gifted, both reading and math in my district.
So, Danny, in your current plan and the plans we just submitted, we should have defined each of those 5 identification areas. AI is actually the PowerSchool abbreviation for academically and intellectually gifted. So we've been talking about AIG, academically and intellectually gifted, as opposed to AG or IG. Instead of the or, it's the and. But in PowerSchool, we're limited to 2-character codes. And so AI is what we've been calling the and, the academically and intellectually gifted. We're limited to only 2 characters. So that's where you have AI. I'm hoping that makes sense, Danny. If not, just shoot me another question and I can make sure I'm answering what you've asked. Okay? So, Kathy, I'm not sure if your question is why are we having students show up on reports with 2 identifications? Tell me, Kathy, if you can clarify which report are you running? There's a problem out there right now with one of our reports, and if you're using a SQL 4 report, there's an error with that, and so none of the other reports should be doing that, and none of them I've heard are doing that. So just let me know specifically which report are you referring to? What report are you running that's showing up with 2 identifications? I think that's the question you're asking. Yep, the SQL 4. So we were going to talk about generating reports a little bit later in the presentation, but that SQL 4 report is not accurate right now. I apologize for that. We've noticed we have a ton of work tickets in on that, and we realize there's an issue. We are working on that. So if you guys are running an SQL 4 report, just don't. Try the search feature, or even your current student listing should be accurate. But definitely the search, the one that we went over already, is accurate, okay? So sorry for your struggles with the SQL 4 report. But we are aware, and we are working with our PowerSchool team and our Remedy team to get that report up and running and accurate. Okay, there's some other questions about identification. I'm going to try to answer those case by case as Cammie is working on the other pieces, right? So she's going to move on so we don't get stuck.
And I see, Kathy, you said your student names are showing up twice on a list.
That's the SQL 4, I think.
It may be the SQL reports.
Yeah, she said it was a SQL 4.
Yeah. All right, so if they're not showing up twice anywhere else, then you're okay. If they are showing up twice on your headcount report, that might be duplicate records, and that will require a remedy ticket. So we'll move on with where we're at right now. Okay, so we're going to next modify or update an existing AIG enrollment record. The student's current school of enrollment will show at the top left when you're on the AIG program page. If the student was placed in the AIG program at a previous school, the school name listed in the record reflects the LEA or school that created the record in the school name field. So if you have access, the AIG coordinators or lead specialists, you can click Update. And here is again a new button for y'all. So we're going to see Add New Record instead of, you used to see a Modify button, I think. So now you're going to see Add New Record or Edit Latest Record. Let's start with Add New Record. You use this when a student changes schools or changes placement identification area. The student's current school, again, will show under the LEA school. And if the student was placed in the program at the previous school, again, you'll see that previous school name. So once you click Add a New Record, it's going to show your school. You're going to, again, put in the date that the student began receiving services at your school, or maybe they went from reading only to reading and math or academically and intellectually gifted, and you're going to need to change that. So you're going to add a new record. Add your date, choose your identification, and submit. Okay. Any questions on that? Are we good? Oh, we're still asking Ed.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, we're going to go on. Maybe you need to edit the latest record, and that you're going to use that to only correct data that was entered incorrectly. And it must be a record that belongs to the school that you are modifying. So it must belong to your district if you're trying to modify that data. You can't go in there and say a student moved from a previous district into your district. You can't go edit their record. So you're going to need to add a new record, or, yeah, you're going to need to add a new record if it's the previous school's record. If it's your record and you have the rights to do so, you can correct data. So edit latest record then allows you to access the date if the date needs changing, or the AIG identification. Now notice the little plus sign is going to let you know what's already set. It will have a plus sign to denote the current identification, and then you can choose one of the other ones if they've now qualified for a different identification. Now to withdraw a student from AIG, you're going to use this.
Let me just say real quickly, we do not in any way encourage withdrawal of students, but we do clearly understand that it's the LEA's right and responsibility to maintain your identification record. So you know that the state strongly discourages the practice of de-gifting students. However, we do understand that we do need to have a way to do that when it becomes necessary. So we're going to walk through that process. I just wanted to make sure I let you know where we stand on that issue. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, so again, if you've got the right, you click the update button, and you'll see the third button over is the withdraw button. You'll click that, and you'll see on the next screenshot, again, you have the school name pops in there, and you'll see the record that's already there with the date, and you know this student has either had a parent request them to be withdrawn, or they no longer meet your LEA criteria. And you're going to choose the withdrawal code and put in the date that they are withdrawing. Then again, you have the option to either cancel or submit. Okay, Ms. Stephanie wanted us to talk about a couple other tabs that you're going to see when you're on the AIG program page. So here, when you've gone to the pulled up a student, you've clicked on AIG program. We were under the current status where you could update and modify records. Now the next tab over is Program Services tab. This is used to create a plan for how students will be served. There's a button for Run Report, and the Run Report has spaces for signatures, which I understand the AIG coordinators like to have that report. And then it can also be used as DEP for your differentiated education plan.
So for those of you who have been asking about how you can go digital with your paperwork, I believe this is probably the best way to do it. Now, let me just say, we rolled these tabs out last year. There's a lot of other stuff going on, and a lot of people haven't seen it or haven't really had an opportunity to test it out. But this Program Services tab allows you to customize and create a DEP for each of your students. And so I encourage you to take a good look, especially if you were thinking about going digital with your records. Now, I would also not encourage you to try to go in right now and do this tab or the Identification Evidence tab for all your already identified students. If it were me, I would consider this year's identified group moving forward, beginning to utilize these tabs if you're looking for an opportunity to have a digital record, okay? So just encourage you to take a look. Lots of what is most commonly provided across the state. When you go in to create a new plan, you have lots of opportunity to add additional information. And when you run that report, you have an opportunity for parents to sign off and keep that copy. So a lot of good functionality out of this tab. I hope you can make it work for you. Okay?
So here's just a screenshot of your Identification Evidence tab. It's used to document the assessments and other criteria that were collected and evaluated to identify the student. And again, has that report that has spaces for signatures. And we have a couple questions. Do we need to address those? Will the alert button disappear once the student exits the program? We have a couple of alert buttons still active on students, even though the student exited.
Hey, Susan, we have put that into a ticket. The alert button is not fully functional right now, is what I've been told. It is functional in Power School, not in Power Teacher. So I get that question a lot. Will it be back in Power Teacher so teachers can see who their gifted students are? We're hopeful, but that is likely going to be a little while before they can get that back up and running. And there are some issues right now with the alert button.
Okay, and I'm thinking,
probably the best
if we're talking about Power School, should it disappear when they withdraw the student? I think if they've ever been identified and that record's still there, I think that button will stay.
But we have put in a ticket to ask about that question and to see if that's not the functionality, what would we need to do? So that's kind of being investigated. Does that make sense? I was in the middle of typing in a response. And then I see another question.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Was it previously possible for districts to remove Power School records that were identified? No, that is not a change. You've not been able to modify a record from students who were not in your district. The reason we wanted to make sure we covered that, we have a lot of questions about that as transfer students come in. I get a lot of questions about it, especially if they don't meet your criteria. What should you do? So we talk about that, and you cannot modify a record from a district outside of your own. So just want to make sure that's clear to people.
Okay.
And no, neither the Identification Evidence tab nor the Program Services tab are required. They're available for you because there are enough districts in our state that just were struggling with that issue that we built that into the programming. So it is not required at all. It's not required. It's an option that is available for you. And there are a lot of, I think, potential benefits, but it's not required.
Okay.
Okay, I got to read that one, but if you want to go ahead. Nikki, I see your question. I'm coming back to it.
Okay. We're going to review some questions. We'll move on ahead, and Stephanie will get the answer for you. All right, so generating your AIG reports. The first one you're going to want to generate probably is your headcount report, and that's a state report. So from your start page in Power School, you'll run it at school level first, but this will also be done at LEA level once the schools have run. So it's the state reports, and you'll bring up the reports. You want the state reporting dashboard tab. It should come up. If it doesn't, click on the state reporting dashboard, and then you'll see down below your fall AIG headcount, which is coming up. And for next 2017, your spring AIG headcount. Remember that Power School is an authoritative source for AIG data. So this headcount is very important. You need to look at your students and decide what their records should be as far as AIG. Is it incorrectly? Do they have the correct dates? The head count, when you run this and review it, just review every part of it so that you can clarify your data and get it correct before they pull it. Once you've run the AIG head count, you'll see in the top line, you'll also see a review button. When you're running that report, if you've not run one before, there is a refresh button at the top of the page. You just keep clicking it until you see that review button. Once you click the review button, it's going to bring up your head count page, and you can choose a category. The LEA sees AIG Fall View, and then you're going to choose a data view, and the LEA would choose AIG Program Student Official Head Count. The school view, you see down below, also has AIG Fall Views, and they have Fall AIG Head Count. And again, there are several other data views that you can look in to ensure that your data is correct. So, what if the data is not correct? You may see some exceptions, and that will be in your drop-down too. So you click Review, you click the Fall or Spring AIG Head Count, you chose a category, AIG Exceptions or Common Exceptions, and you'll see that in the screenshot there. So AIG Exceptions, you're going to choose a data view. You're going to pick which exception you have. Here's one caveat. You're only going to see exceptions for exceptions that you have. There are 3, and we see those there. AIG 1, students missing key demographic data, which is a warning. AIG 2, previous AIG students, which is information only. And AIG 3, students with duplicate AIG registrations, which is a warning. If you do not have students with duplicate AIG registrations, you will not have that in your drop-down. Okay, so in this case, this school has some information, previously and newly identified AIG students, just for you to go look at and make sure their records have been set up correctly. So at the school level, they will correct the errors, and they can review the warnings and correct where needed there, or just take it as information only. Once the school has no corrections that they can do further, everything's okay, they are going to approve their head count report, and then the LEA can go in and review behind the school, and once all the schools have approved, the LEA can approve the head count report.
Let me just say that last year, one of the things that's really important is that when you run that initial head count at the school level, when you make changes and edits and corrections to that report, you need to rerun the head count. Right. So that you are now syncing or capturing all of that new information. What happens is if you don't rerun it, even though you've made changes, the LEA level is pulling that same old head count. And so you do need to rerun the head count once you've made any corrections. Then at the LEA level, the head count can be run. Okay, so be very careful. And I tell people that this really is critical, because as you are about to begin seeing, and you've started seeing your data, your accountability data, and you are noticing how your AIG subgroup is performing, it is based on the data we pull from PowerSchool. Please be careful about that. Take the time to run the head count at each school. Check it. I'm not saying you, the district coordinator, needs to check each school. You can have someone at each school checking that, but you need to check it carefully, okay? Because at some point we have to pull the data. Shortly after November 30th and April 30th, we pull the data, and our accountability folks use that information as the authoritative source. And if we get that wrong, then the data you get back and start analyzing is incorrect as well. So please be careful and be thoughtful about checking this data. Only happens twice a year, and you need to begin looking at it once that window opens. in November, around the 15th. Check it, make corrections, rerun it, and then pull it at the LEA level. It's just really important that you do that. Again, this year, our Power School team is going to be supporting me. Actually, Cammie was helping me do that last year.
Yes, we did.
When we had to email districts to say, your headcount hasn't been run and your data needs to be cleaned up. So we'll be doing that, but the better you can do that at the beginning, just the better your data will be. So just think about that carefully
Okay.
as we go.
Thank you, Stephanie. Very good points. AIG 3, if you do get that, and you go to the child's record and you don't see duplicate records there, they're there. You can see them with the Data Export Manager, and that does require a remedy ticket because we have to get Power School to correct those records. So if you do get that AIG 3 warning, go ahead and get the information on the student and go ahead and open, whoever has the rights to open a remedy ticket with the support desk here at DPI, they can put that in for a remedy ticket and we can resolve that with Power School. So then to verify your headcount report, these are just some other areas you can go and pull AIG student listings. One of those is from the start page. You'll go under functions and choose special functions, and then you're going to scroll all the way down until you see North Carolina special functions, and there you can do a fall AIG student listing or the spring depending on the year, and use that. Stephanie, I don't know how they use that to verify their headcount report. It just pulls additional data. It will show you those abbreviations for the AIG, AGAI. It will show you those.
I think people just compare.
Yeah, compare the listings. Yeah. So to generate AIG reports, we also have standalone reports that you can run. This for the state has set up for you, and that is also listed from the start page under the reports area. You're going to click on standalone reports, and that will bring you to the reports page, and you should be on the state standalone reports tab. There are several AIG reports here. There's AIG Identification Evidence Summary, AIG Latest Record from another LEA or school, AIG Program Services Plan, AIG Transfer Status ID Evidence, and AIG Transfer Status Program Service. So there's several reports that you can use to, again, verify and compare your data. We have a question? No, we're good? Oh, wow. At the end. All right, so final notes. If we don't have any further questions, your fall, we'll look for those questions if you won't be getting those in. Your fall AIG headcount data for 2016-17 will be pulled this November 30th. For students to be included in the fall 16-17 headcount, their AIG start date must be on or before November 15, 2016. If the student should not be in the fall 16-17 headcount, their withdrawal date should be on or before November 15, 2016. And then you see a bullet there for the spring headcount. It will be capturing students that were receiving services on or before April 15, 2017. And that data will be pulled April 30th, 2017. All right, do we have any further questions?
Question is, are the standalone reports LEA or school level?
That's a great question, Betsy. It depends. So if you're talking about, for example, the standalone report, the AIG from another LEA or school, that's a school level report, as well as the two new tabs, the identification evidence and program evidence, are also school level reports. I do think one of the standalone reports is an LEA level. It has to do with the exceptions, but most of them are school levels. They're intended for your use at the school level. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Okay, if you'll see on the screen, we have our contact information for Ms. Stephanie Cyrus for AIG questions, and Tiffany Kinney on the support desk. We used to be on the support desk, but now on the training team. Tiffany's address is up there, and I'm Cammie, and my address is up there. And there's a link for those that have access to the Remedy portal where they can enter tickets into the Remedy portal. Right?
So also, if you notice in the handout section, the presentation has been posted in the webinar handout section. Also, I have posted in the chat where you can see how to contact also the Home-Based Support Center, and also where to look for the security group's QRDs. I know they are listed also in the PowerPoint, but just know that that www.nc-cis.org site is for PowerSchool, and there are quite a few QRDs out there on that. If there's no other questions, double check.
Well, how about we can hang on the line for about 5 to 7 minutes to try to answer any questions that you guys still have. We'll just kind of hang out here. Also know that I will post this presentation on our AIG Wiki site, the PDF version on our AIG Wiki site, so it'll be pretty easy for you to find as well. Yay. So we're here, and we'll try to answer any questions in the next few minutes that come along. Okay, Danny, if you're still on the line, please give me a call maybe this afternoon, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the questions that you had, okay? If you don't mind to do that, I will be in the office for quite a little bit this afternoon. So, and we'll keep you posted, all of you posted, about the SQL4 reports, which are creating lots of great havoc, but we'll keep you posted about that.
That's the one I need for ticket.
Yes, that's the one that needs a ticket. I'm working on that ticket from Indy. All right. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a great afternoon. We're going to end the recording now, but we'll be hanging out for a few more minutes.